or may not stick to that. What do you think of that remark, and how's the vetting going for all of the other names that are out there? Shapiro, Cooper, Pritzker, Bashir, and the rest.
I've known Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, for 20 years. When I started out as a freelance high school reporter in Pennsylvania, he's a methodical, calm politician, and he's someone who could really help Harris with Pennsylvania. He's definitely being seriously considered, as is Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, a former astronaut, military veteran, someone who could help with that area. We'll be staying in Michigan. She's not seen as someone at the top of that list, but the discussions remain fluid. They still all have to be vetted.
Where are you from in Pennsylvania, Bob?
Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Bucks County, PA, north of Philly, Levittown. I'm from Dauphin County, one of the few true swing counties left in America.
See, and with our Pennsylvania roots.
Two true swing counties. I always say, look, there's a lot to be proud of from Dauphin County, a couple of things not to be proud of, but it is a true swing county in a true swing state. My fellow Pennsylvania, Robert Costa, Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent at CBS News. Bob, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, our Olympic series, Rings and Things, it continues. France has banned its athletes from wearing headscarves while they compete, but other nations' competitors are free to do so. We're going to get into that and why what athletes wears matters at the Olympics. A lot to dig into here. I'm Todd Zwillig. This is 1A from WAMU and NPR.
This is Baltimore's NPR news station, 88.1 WYPR. 1A continues till noon today. Listen at noon for midday and join us later today for All Things Considered.
When a political party has a primary to nominate candidates for the Oval Office, voters usually get to weigh in. But President Biden's decision to exit the race has changed everything. Delegates and the political process ahead on All Things Considered from NPR News.
4 to 8 p.m. here on WYPR.
Check out the latest episode of Your Child's Brain, a podcast series produced by Kennedy Krieger Institute with assistance from WYPR. I'm Dr. Brad Schlager, President and CEO of Kennedy Krieger Institute. Join me and my guests as we discuss the critical shortage and its implications of physician specialists caring for children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's Your Child's Brain, available on the first Thursday of every month at kennedykrieger.org/YCB or wherever you get your podcasts.
WYPR is a media partner for the Baltimore Speaker Series, presented by Stevenson University. 7 evenings at the Meyerhoff with folks who've left a mark on their respective fields, including composer Andrew Lloyd Webber, AI pioneer Oren Etzioni, and news anchor Chris Wallace. The Baltimore Speaker Series, presenting the world up close. Information at baltimorespeakers.org, made possible in part by Baltimore Equitable Insurance. Northbound 895 remains jammed from the Seal Bridge up to the south end of the Harbor Tunnel. Left lane closure at around Frankfurst Avenue because of road construction. Slow traffic on northbound 83 in Hunt Valley from Schwann Road up to Belfast Road. I'm getting reports of a crash on westbound Route 100 in Severn, slowing things down from Telegraph Road to Arundel Mills Boulevard. It's 20 after 11.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, which monitors safe driving habits to determine a personalized rate. At progressive.com, not available in California or from all agents. From BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 35,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Welcome back. I'm Todd Zwillig. This is 1A. Well, this week, the fashion capital of the world becomes the sporting capital of the world, with the Summer Games kicking off, of course, in Paris, France. The world's best athletes, they're going to be outfitted in premier designs, which not only make them look good, but also help them compete at this very high level. Name brand sponsors, they dress the games and the players head to toe. Louis Vuitton designed special trunks to carry the medals. Rihanna's Fenty Beauty created a designated makeup look for volunteers. Even the underwear that athletes wear is provided to them by Kim Kardashian's company called Skims. Imagine that, even their underwear. When Olympic swimmer Katie Ledecky dives into the pool, she'll be wearing a suit from apparel brand Tier with lab-tested technology to make her glide as smoothly as possible. Later in the hour, we're going to hear more from that company. Plus, Shrink It and Pink It. That describes how women's athletic apparel was designed compared to men's. But how far have we actually come? We're going to get into that controversy. First, here are our guests for the rest of the hour. Joining us from Ontario, Canada, is Laura Meisner, professor in the School of Kinesiology at Western University. She's on the board of directors at the school's International Center for Olympic Studies. Hi, Laura.
Good morning.
Also with us from NPR studios in New York City, Vanessa Friedman, fashion critic at the New York Times. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Great to have you with us. Also, you can join the conversation too if you're an athlete. How does what you wear affect your performance? You can send us an email, 1a@wamu.org, and we definitely want to hear from you. Well, the Olympic opening ceremonies are a spectacle. They're also a fashion show. Every nation is dressed in matching outfits. The United States wearing looks designed by Ralph Lauren. Again, Vanessa, what makes a great opening ceremony look for a nation? You can talk about this nation. You can talk about what any nation wants to convey.
I think they all want to convey the same thing, right? Which is a sense of national identity, something that speaks to the semiology of the country on the world stage, something that makes the athletes stand out, right? That makes them memorable, and something that makes them comfortable, and also something that will sell. Because for a lot of these designers, these Olympic collections or Olympic adjacent collections are also sold in their stores. Ralph Lauren certainly will be selling the Olympic collection. So he's dressing not just the team, but also potentially all his consumers.
Well, here's Ralph Lauren, who designed Team USA's opening and closing ceremony looks, as you mentioned, as well as their Team Village outfits, what they wear in the Olympic Village. I wonder if they ever get to just wear a t-shirt and sweats like their own clothes. Here's David Lauren, Chief Branding and Innovation Officer and son of Ralph Lauren, talking to CNBC.
With the Olympics, we actually work with the athletes. They come up to our offices, we meet with the Olympic Committee, they tell us what makes them feel comfortable. It's amazing. They're going to walk in front of the entire world, and they want to feel confident.
And the Team Village outfits are inspired by race car drivers.
My dad loves race cars, loves the feeling of speed, loves the sports sensibility, and thought of sort of a modern team jacket came right out of that, and it just felt fashion forward. It's trending in the world right now, sort of automotive racing. You could see it with Formula One.
There's David Lauren selling it. Vanessa, what's your fashion critic view on the designs for the games for Team USA?
They're completely classic Ralph. There is a blue blazer, there is red trim, there are jeans, right? What's more American than denim, and there's the Ralph race car jacket. You know, I think they speak very much to his aesthetic, and they look, you know, stereotypically American. He's been dressing the Olympic team for a long time now, for multiple Olympics, and I've got to say there's something extremely consistent, maybe almost too consistent, with the outfits he provides. Sometimes I wish he could be a little more adventurous with them, but you know, they are entirely identifiable.
Well, he's got a brand identity to uphold after all, and I think the implication here is how important that is for the designer, in addition to patriotism, I'm sure. Laura, what is your take on what countries are trying to communicate through their opening ceremony outfit choices for these very athletic games?
Yeah, I think it's really about national identity, what the meaning of national identity is for them. I think for a long time, if you look historically at what's happened, you've seen a lot of those nations coming out in what might be very typical, stereotypical representations from their nations. And we saw a real turn in that in the early 90s to nations stepping out and saying, no, actually, let us decide what that representation should look like and what their national identity is about. So then working with designers to develop something that's unique and clearly identifiable for them. And I think that's an important part of it. So,
well, Vanessa, opening ceremony looks from Mongolia went viral.
Yeah,
Hades caught special attention
Street
as well. What made those two countries stand out?
Hades are pretty great. They're by a designer called Stella Jean, who actually shows during Milan Fashion Week. She's Haitian Italian, and they managed to bridge that gap between speaking to the history of a country, right? Speaking to the national colors, to a garment that's often worn, sort of stereotypically worn by a country, and also looking kind of original. The skirts and the trousers were created according to a print that was made by a Haitian artist. The chambray shirts have a kind of design element to them that's a little more interesting than the kind you might find in a generic shirt of that kind. And so it's become very eye-catching. Similarly, Mongolia has managed to bridge what looks kind of like athleisure and Mongolian iconography, with embroidery, with trim, and it looks original, and it looks idiosyncratic, and it looks modern, which
Laura,
is, I think, the key.
Yeah, Laura, you reached back to the 90s for some iconic looks just a moment ago. There have been some big moments in the past, the 64 Olympics in Tokyo with opening ceremony apparel. Tell us more about those Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, I think those games were a real turning point when we saw the color, because originally what we saw is most of the teams being pretty monochromatic in terms of the looks, being very conservative in what they represented. But in the 1964 games, we saw a real change in terms of the fashion perspective coming forward. And there's sort of this piece around, that was one of the games where there was sort of East and West Germany, and played as a single team. So the unification of a team was represented in the wardrobe as well. So there's some really interesting turns of events that happen through the attire that they're wearing, representing very particular identities. I think at that time you also see a real move away from sort of a militaristic identity, which is imbued in the game's history anyway. And so in the early 60s, you saw that turn happen, particularly with these new colors and what some have described previously don't look like their grandparents' wardrobes anymore, look like some more fashion-forward perspectives.
And Canada got some attention way back in 1972. Those are famous games. That was Munich. What did Canada wear that year?
Right, 1972 is the games where Canada had, their golden colors, right? They brought out we're known for our red and whites, of course, but the red and white blazers, the red blazers as being particularly important for the opening ceremonies, and so you've seen that happen in 1972. Of course, there's an iconic moment that happens throughout that year that we all know about, the games. So the red and white outfits and the women in the white skirts was really important. And that was an important turn for Canada, because we were going to be hosting then the 1976 games. So there needed to be an identity marker standing out. And so that was a really important point. So you see this significant turn when they wear a color. There's something likely to be happening within the country, or they're trying to make a particular statement. And of course, in 1972, the Summit Series helped define some of those particular pieces.
And the Montreal Games would follow in 1976, of course. Vanessa, where can all of this go wrong? Where does a fashion choice for the opening ceremonies or the closing ceremonies just go sideways for a country? I don't want to put anybody down, but if there are iconic designs that really connect to a national identity, I'm sure there are some fails. Let's talk about them. Where can it go wrong?
I mean, sometimes they just look really silly, right? There's a fine line between country representation and costume, and sometimes they just tip right over. On the other hand, sometimes it can be a lot of fun. I mean, I don't think people are really expecting the opening ceremony to be the equivalent of a genuine runway show, right? It's spectacle, it's pageantry, it's nationalism in the extreme, it's sort of rah-rah excitement. And that can sometimes be a little cheesy, and that is absolutely fine.
Well, Paris is known as the capital of fashion. We got to talk about Team France, by the way, at these games and how they're going to represent. I think this is a big moment for them in terms of fashion, but more affordable brands are there too, not just Chanel. But why are Olympics, even more so than in the past, the home of luxury brands for the fashion industry, Vanessa? Why is this about Ralph Lauren and Louis Vuitton and Prada and not, as much J. Crew or Banana Republic?
I mean, the biggest thing is that the one of the premium partners for this particular Olympics is LVMH, aka Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton, which is the single biggest luxury group in the world. Right? It's run by a man who is, depending on the day, the richest man in the world, or the second or third richest man in the world, Bernard Arnault. And the way that they negotiated this deal is that they're not just a sponsor the way Carrefour, EDF, or the big companies we're used to are sponsors, i.e. their name is on the hoardings on the stadiums. They're what they call a creative partner, and that means their brands, fashion brands, drinks brands, beauty brands, are being sprinkled throughout the games. So, as you say, Berluti, which is one of their men's wear brand, is dressing Team France for the opening ceremony. Louis Vuitton has designed the boxes for the medals, as well as what the medal bearers are going to wear. Moet is being served in the hospitality suites. And when that's the bar that every other country has to meet, you can bet they're going to try and compete.
Yeah, it's high. It's a high bar. Nice one. Nice pun. I like it. Thanks, Vanessa, for that Olympic fashion pun. You're doing it. You're doing it in 1A style here. We're talking about the fashion and sports worlds colliding at this year's Summer Games in Paris with Laura Meisner, professor of kinesiology at Western University in Ontario, and Vanessa Friedman, fashion critic at the New York Times. I'm Todd Zwillich. You're listening to 1A. Now, let's get into what Olympic athletes will wear when they compete. Rachel Ripley is the director of merchandising at TYR, that's capital T-Y-R. They're the swimwear apparel brand that created the uniforms for the swimmers and divers on Team USA. She's also a competitive swimmer. So let's dive in. Rachel, talk to me about the look of the uniforms that you created for USA Swimming and Diving.
Sure. So it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me. So we brought out the Elite Puffer jacket, which is the walkout piece, basically from the warm-up area to the starting blocks, and then also what the divers will be wearing before they dive off the boards. This is a beautiful 400-gram white puffer jacket. It's very clean lines. I think white looks very elevated with the big USA logo on the back of the jacket. That's kind of that main pinnacle piece that we will be showing, along with our Recon soft shell jacket that also is white with gray fleece interior with the blue zipper kind of giving that pop of USA, with our Elevation Tech joggers in navy blue with that USA, and we throw on our red Technit trainers for the shoes to really give that pop of that true USA. We feel that if the athlete feels good, they're going to perform at a high level.
So that's just a lot of fashion. TYR also designs suits. I mean, suit is where the body meets the water. That's got fashion considerations for sure, but also a lot of technical ones. We'll talk about the suits in one quick second. Why so much focus from TYR on the sneakers, on the pants, on the white jackets, on the puffers, on all the things that aren't in the pool? Is that an important brand extension for you?
It definitely is. We're moving more towards that performance lifestyle brand. I like to say that we're working to be in and out of the water, head to toe, TYR Sport as lifestyle, driving the brand forward. So this is a huge opportunity for us from a marketing piece to see some of the top athletes in the world wearing the product on primetime television, which we're very excited about.
So you design the suits, of course. Those are important. They have to be hydrodynamic. Athletes demand it. At the 2009 World Championships in Rome, people might remember this, swimmers blasted through normal times. They set 43 new records wearing what were called super suits with neck to ankle coverage, and now those suits are banned. So what regulations do you have to follow when you're creating suit designs?
Sure. So that was the polyurethane era of swimsuits, basically giving athletes more flotation in the water. It's since changed to really put you more in a box of rules and regulations. It also puts manufacturers more so at, like, we have to release a suit at least 30 days prior so that every athlete gets an opportunity to wear the suit. So it's leveled the playing field a little bit, which I think it's good to make sure there's inclusivity and making sure all athletes are able to wear the product. So the suits no longer can go to the ankles. They now have to stay above the knee. From a fabric standpoint, the permeability and the density of the fabric. There's certain rules and regulations that you're required to go through for that. You submit all your suits to World Aquatics, which previously was known as FINA, and you go through an extensive approval process to get your suits put into the market.
So we just have one quick minute here. Describe the suits if you can, what we're going to be seeing. Are they boxer cut, short cut on the legs, or are they traditional, bikini cut on the bottom? What do they look like?
So women's and men's suits basically cut at the knee, just above the knee. Women's suits go obviously over the chest. You have open back and closed back. Closed back for women has fabric on your back, whereas open back is a circle that you would see. Whereas men's jammers, we have a low waist and a high waist suit. If the guy's looking for a little bit more compression, they'll wear the high waist that's closer to the belly button. Otherwise, they would wear the low waist.
And the material, proprietary, technologically sophisticated? Are you allowed to say what it is?
We work with our Italian mills that do a phenomenal job. They're the experts. We definitely have a frictionless yarn that goes in that creates a lot of water repellency in the water, so that's the goal.
That sounds proprietary to me. I didn't hear an answer there. Rachel Ripley is the director of merchandising for Tier, the swimmer apparel brand that created the uniforms for USA Swimming and Dive at the 2023 Paris Games. Thanks for joining us, Rachel. Coming up, Nike had a PR disaster on its hands when it unveiled the track and field uniforms for Team USA. One look was particularly revealing. We're going to talk about why male and female athletes are dressed differently at the games. We'll get into it with Laura Meisner, professor of kinesiology at Western University, and Vanessa Friedman of the New York Times. I'm Todd Zwillich. This is 1A.
And this is Baltimore's NPR News Station, 88.1 WYPR, where we've got another 20 minutes of 1A yet to come, and then stick around at noon for Midday.
On the next Midday, the award-winning best-selling author Eric Larson talks about his latest book, an exploration of the tense period in the months before the start of the Civil War. Meticulously researched, Larson tells the story with dazzling detail. I'm Tom Hall. Eric Larson joins me to talk about the Demon of Unrest on the next Midday at noon on 88.1 WIPR, Baltimore's NPR news station.
And coming our way later today,
the Port of Baltimore is in need of a whole lot of workers, some with college degrees, some without. Recruiting, next time on Marketplace.
business news from the Port of Baltimore and also from around the world. Marketplace coming our way at 6:30 this evening during All Things Considered. Baltimore Public Media's New Next Film Festival returns to the Charles Theater on October 3rd through the 6th, featuring cutting-edge films and filmmakers from Baltimore and beyond. The deadline for film submissions is Wednesday, July 31st, and there's information at newnextfilmfest.com. Northbound BW Parkway is still jammed from Arundel Mills Boulevard to 100. This because of road work. More road work impacting northbound 895 from the Steel Bridge to the south end of the Harbor Tunnel. And then in Frederick County, we got a crash on northbound Route 15 right around Rosemont Avenue. It's been moved to the right shoulder, but northbound 15 is jammed from I-70 up to Rosemont Avenue. Highs near 90 degrees today. It's 20 minutes before noon.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Angie, dedicated to helping homeowners find skilled pros to get their home projects done well. From everyday repairs to major remodels. Reviews, pricing, and booking are at Angie.com or on the Angie app. And from Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates, all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. This is NPR.
Welcome back. It's 1A. I'm Todd Zwillich. Back to our conversation on uniforms and fashion at the Olympics in just a moment. But first, a quick word about another show in our series on the Olympic Summer Games. Breaking, or breakdancing, it's going to make its debut at the Olympics in Paris. 4 American breakers qualified for the first ever Olympic competition. Now, breaking's inclusion comes as a number of other youth-led sports return to the Games, including skateboarding, climbing, and surfing. But the Paris Olympic Games will see a number of other changes, including some sports not returning. So we're going to talk through what's new to watch as the Games kick off this weekend, but we'd also love to hear from you. Is there a sport that you'd like to see at the Olympics that isn't currently included? The number 855-236-1212. The obvious answer, of course, is baseball. For this baseball fan, not included in France. Hey, but that's okay. It'll be back. And also, you see baseball all the time. I want to see some of the events that you never get to see. So what event are you most excited to see? Leave us a voicemail, 855-236-1212. You can also leave a message with our app, 1A Vox Pop, and we'll talk through all of it here on Thursday. Let's get back to today's conversation about the Olympics. We're talking about what athletes will be wearing in Paris and why it matters. Our guests are Laura Meisner, professor of kinesiology at Western University, and Vanessa Friedman, fashion critic at the New York Times. Well, France banned its Olympic athletes from wearing headscarves while competing, although athletes from other nations are still allowed to do so. The French government says the decision aligns with a law that prohibits public workers from wearing religious symbols in France. Al Jazeera produced a documentary about a basketball player, Aline Ba, whose Olympic dreams were shattered by this rule, which also extends to the country's professional leagues.
Là, on se retrouve à lutter pour ce que designers us fighting for something